Hello everyone, my name is Seven Maria and welcome to my Java GUI tutorial. In this video I'm going to go over many topics about GUIs, so libraries, basic creation, layout managers, nesting component, organization, action listeners, and visual design and images. For this tutorial I am using the IDE NetBeans. To start us off, we'll need to deal with importing the libraries that we will need. These libraries are javax.swing and java.ot. The star imports all the cluster of libraries. You don't have to import a bunch of different specific classes from that library. Now, to create a JFrame, the base of your GUI, so you can create a JFrame window equals new JFrame, and then you put text. This text is what will appear as the window's name. Next, you create this line of code, makes it so when you close the window, the entire program will stop, reducing usage over the many instances you will make to test, and then we will set the size of the window. Next, to put something in the frame, you create a JPanel and a JLabel. JLabel holds some text, and it's a good start in making sure your code works, and from here all you have to do is panel.add our label, and then same for our window.add our panel. And then use this method to show our frame. When you run the program, you should see this. Now, if you want to make more complex, better looking, and more intuitive GUI, you will have to use different layout managers. Layout managers are built-in ways to format your GUI, and the ones I'm going over today here are Flow Layout, Border Layout, and Grid Bag Layout. The first, Flow Layout, is the default manager for panels and works by placing each component next to each other from left to right, top to bottom. This layout, being the default, does not have to be included in the declaration statement of the JPanel you want to use it. Next, Border Layout allows placement of components on the north, south, east, and west edges of the panel. Take this continue button, for example. See that it's been extended and is laying across the bottom of this panel. Unlike Flow Layout, you have to declare a panel to be using Border Layout, simply by putting new Border Layouts with parentheses inside the declaration of that panel. And Grid Bag Layout. Grid Bag Layout is a more complex layout manager that puts components in that grid-like fashion, allows you to manipulate the positions and sizes of those components using grid bag constraints. I'll go over this in more detail in a bit. Using layout managers in one JPanel can seem a bit limiting. However, you can actually use as many layout managers as you need by nesting multiple panels within a main panel. That main panel, usually being a border, can contain as many panels as you want it to. This is an example as many panels I've placed and recolored. These are all JPanels instead of a main panel. Each of these panels contain more panels and other components and make it as complex as you want, or have the screen resolution display. There are also some types of components that are meant to contain other panels or other components, and can provide something extra like a JTab pane. As you can see with these tabs here, it allows a user to flip between pages, like tabs. And adding tabs is as simple as using a method from JTab pane, add tab, with the component as the parameter. And many other types of JComponents exist, and many I'm still not aware of, so experiment away. Now, when creating many different panels for the same project, it is commonplace to use separate classes for both organization and the ability to reuse and interact with itself apart from any other panel. One way to use classes is to create a static array to contain instances of its class, and within the constructor, adding itself to that array. And since it's static, it's available for all instances of that class, allowing to perhaps send a message to other tabs or share information when an action is done in one of the instances. But before I move on, I'll return to Grid Bag Layout as an example of its use. As was said before, Grid Bag Layout utilizes grid bag constraints. Grid bag constraints is basically just a class which contains a lot of different fields that you can modify, like grid X or grid Y, which represents the position of the actual element that you want to place on the grid, well, on the grid. And there's also weight X and weight Y, which decides whether or not you want those elements to span multiple parts of the grid. And yeah, I mean, other than that, it's pretty simple. All you really need to know is that you have to individually set all the grid bag constraints and then add the thing you want to add all the grid bag constraints, add grid bag constraints, add grid bag constraint, add. It's not too complex, and that's pretty much all that goes through it. Now, getting into the biggest part of GUI, interaction. Interactions come in the form of listeners. There are many types of listeners. For example, if you want to click on an interactable button, you want to use an action listener. There are two ways of using action listeners, but the easiest way is with this line of code. This is known as creating an anonymous inner class and allows you to actually run code when you press a button. For example, when this continue button is pressed, it removes the continue button from the panel and calls a method to add all the other tabs. As I said, there are many types of listeners, and another to go over would be key listener. A key listener can track when any key is pressed, and it calls its unique methods. These methods don't do anything by default, but allow you to override them. These methods include key pressed, as shown here, key released, and key typed. And by using our key event, E, you can check for if a specific key or a specific set of keys is a part of that event. For example, when a user presses enter, you could do some code that only happens when a user presses enter. Or in my case, using the robot class, I simulate being able to press enter as the robot simulates pressing backspace. The robot class is mostly unrelated to this, but what it does is allows you to automatically simulate an input tracked by an event from each listener's or other type of event. There's also a mouse listener, which tracks mouse clicks and uses override methods like key listener. And the last listener I'll go over today is change listener. Through, once again, an anonymous inner class, getting the source of JTab pane this time, finding the index of the tab clicked, I can change the size of the window for each tab in one place. Now, I've saved the explanation of images for now because I really want to emphasize that I do not know much about them. However, when it comes to images in Swing GUI, one of the ways to use images is image icon placed upon a JPanel to create an image. You first need to load the image into your code. This is done by using buffered image and image.io. First, you'll create a buffered image, and then in a try statements, put image.io.read, then you put the path to the image. Now, getting the path to the image may seem a bit complicated, but it can be accomplished with this. With this.getClass.getResource, and then the name of your image.image type. This will work if the image is in the same folder as the Java file you write the code in. You then close off the try statement and catch any exception, ignoring them completely. Now you can declare a J component, in this case a JPanel, and put new image icon image. If the image is too large or too small, you can create an image using the image class and use getScaledInstance and inputting the size in pixels, and set the icon image to the scaled instance. A part of this project I haven't really gone over yet is the minigame, as it was more of a fun little side project to put into my GUI. Really, all it is there to say is that you can do most of anything in Java that you already knew within GUI, if not more. All that is different is that you can make it easier to test by adding extra buttons or tab with information, and better yet, you can just make it look really nice. You can make your game or your program more personal. It's just... I appreciate if you enjoyed this video. If you learned something, or this inspired you to learn on your own and do better than a random 17-year-old who's a lot to learn still. I mean, there's so much more than what I've said in this video, and I encourage you to go further than these basics. In the description, I've included a Google Drive link with the source code and a NetBeans project if you would like to use my code for learning or otherwise. And with that said, doing anything means everything. Have a wonderful rest of your day.